Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine's Ministry of Environmental Protection had to change its focus from managing the country's natural resources and addressing climate change to tracking each case of the environment being deliberately attacked. From February 2022 until today, Kyiv has registered and documented over 8,000 cases of Russia's crimes against Ukraine's environment, the country's minister told Euronews.
Ми називаємо це злочинами проти довкілля, тому що відбувається і забруднення водних ресурсів, руйнація водної інфраструктури водопостачання, і забруднення ґрунтів, мінування ґрунтів, і лісові пожежі внаслідок мінування, внаслідок бойових дій. На сьогоднішній день всі ці 8 тисяч випадків ми попередньо оцінюємо в грошовому вимірі, в збитках це більше 85 мільярдів євро.
This number does not include the damage to the territories Russia currently occupies and therefore Ukraine cannot access. These losses also do not yet include the most recent Russian attack in February this year on the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and the damage to its safety confinement.
Понад 45 країн робили внески на протязі всього цього періоду від Чорнобильської катастрофи, і тільки в 2017 році ми завершили будівництво нового безпечного конфайнменту, на який було витрачено понад 1 мільярд євро. І зараз ми розуміємо, що функціональність конфайнменту пошкоджена.
A Russian drone hit the confinement over the fourth nuclear reactor, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, on the 14th of February. The drone exploded upon impact with the confinement, causing a fire that took approximately 3 weeks to extinguish.
Denmark has officially quit the Frugal Four to focus on rearmament. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has announced. Denmark joined the so-called Frugal Four during the 2020 negotiations on the EU budget. The group of fiscally conservative countries also included the Netherlands, Austria and Sweden. But as the new budget talks approach, Copenhagen wants to switch sides.
As Danes, we will always be tough in the negotiations on the budget. We don't want money to be spent on nothing that is not necessary for Europe. So we will be tough, but being a part of the Frugal Four is no longer the right place for us.
From now on, Denmark will have a more flexible attitude towards the common EU budget, Frederiksen said, insisting defense spending should take precedence over all other priorities.
For me, the most important thing is to rearm Europe. That's my starting point and that's my conclusion in all discussions. Because if Europe is not able to protect ourselves and to defend ourselves, then it's game over at some point.
Denmark isn't the only one with a change of mindset. Sweden and Finland have also softened their positions, calling for fresh money to boost deterrence capabilities against Russia. The European Commission is expected to present the draft budget before the summer break. Once the proposal is on the table, the political debate will begin in full swing.
What if you had to pay for cabin luggage on a plane? This question is on the table when EU ambassadors meet on Wednesday. According to sources consulted by Euronews, member states are debating a proposal to create a new free hand luggage item, one that can be slipped under the seat. This means a charge could apply to other stowed cabin bags. Consumer associations believe that this surcharge would be illegal.
Actuellement, ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que la Cour de justice européenne a dit très clairement que les bagages à main font partie intégrante du prix du billet de base. Donc normalement, pas de surcharge sur le prix à partir du moment où les bagages à main ont une taille raisonnable. Donc tout ce qu'on voit, c'est une prolifération des pratiques des compagnies aériennes justement de faire payer ces bagages à main. Ce qu'on demande, c'est d'avoir des règles très claires. Le passager doit être capable de mener un bagage à main et une petite valise ou un sac à dos.
The Airlines for Europe Association, which represents 17 airlines, has a different view of the judge's decision. According to the organization, the reform proposal supported by the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union should above anything provide clarification.
I think it's important to point out what the current proposal from the polls does is to set the dimensions for that personal item so that there's the clarity and transparency for all passengers and also for airlines alike. So I'd emphasise again, under EU law, under the single market, airlines have the right to unbundle their services in order to offer the best package for passengers and that they can choose the exact services that they want to keep the price as low as possible.
The other point up for discussion is regarding concerns on compensation for passengers whose flights are delayed. Currently, passengers are entitled to a compensation if flights are delayed for more than 3 hours. The latest proposal would increase this limit to 4. Member states are divided. A few countries, including Germany and Spain, seem to be opposed to any change in the compensation rules. However, it is the entire revision that must be validated or rejected. In other words, opposing changes to the compensation rules will bring down the whole reform.
Glacier-related risks are becoming a global reality, says Celeste Saulo, head of the World Meteorological Organization. Speaking at the Glacier Preservation Conference in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, she said that no matter how developed the country is, all are at risk. Saulo pointed to the recent disaster at the Swiss village of Blatten, where a glacier-triggered mudslide wiped out nearly all livelihoods. 1 person remains missing, but early warning systems help reduce the toll. As climate change accelerates, the WMO is calling for more investment in monitoring and forecasting, especially to protect mountain communities.
This is the new reality. We need to raise awareness of the importance of hydromet services for every single country in every single region. And that's why we advocate for more investments in monitoring. With better monitoring, we can expect to have better forecasts. And with those, we can expect to have better early warning systems in the end to protect societies, to protect people, and to protect livelihoods.
Last week, the Swiss village of Blatten was buried under a massive avalanche of rock and ice from the Birch Glacier and the nearby Lonza riverbed. Days before the disaster, experts warned about a possible collapse of the glacier, which held 1.5 million cubic meters of ice. In response, local authorities evacuated around 300 people and livestock. A few days after the slide, the Lonza River began flowing again through the debris.
We have the artists working through photography to actually provide alternative visions of maybe the way the world is. And the artists are really working with very current issues, from post-colonial legacy in this edition to migration, genocide, the issue really of identity and gender is all embedded in this particular biennale.
The project was developed with a collaborative practice between artists, curators, communities, entities, and this collaborative practice, the outcomes are plural visions, but with common purpose. This vision really highlights the role of art and culture as a driver for social and ecological transformation.
Photography is not anymore photography, that says. I always think and I have the idea that photography is not enough. Photographers today are about to tell stories, and stories are complex, and each story needs sometimes archival material, sometimes video, sometimes sound. So the notion of photography has been now turned, I would say, into the idea of the image. So the image itself could be a moving image, could be also a stage image, and then we could mix. Some of them work with images. They have their books are present in these exhibitions. You are able to see their work as a publication, and then that work would also jump into the idea of the audiovisual or the visual elements that you've been able to see.
So the work I showed here is titled Between Two Trees There Are Many Worlds, and it's about how climate change-induced ecological disaster is observed and experienced through different scales. So on a micro scale, there's the beetle and the tree. On the human scale, there's me in the forest experiencing the death of the forest. And on a larger scale, it's in terms of remote sensing and satellite imaging, how these technologies is helping us monitor and understand climate change.
Even though these are very specific issues that are happening in this very specific region, they're also issues that can be extrapolated to all around the world. That toxicity and runoff and contamination and who's responsible, which country, when it passes over a border, those are problems that are happening all around the world.